Good day. I am here to present our study entitled Economic Valuation and Perceptions on Mangrove Resources Toward Mangrove Conservation and Management in Nabago, Surigao City. My name is Buenaflor, and my co-authors from Surigao State College of Technology are Medielyn Odtojan, Rosalia Hugo, Jerry Cuadrado, Roselle Bertulfo, Louella Degamon, Manny Eviota, Zamhanta Joy Anito, Noelyn Benori, Jelly Moore Lara, and Rosemary Penza. Mangrove forests are diverse ecosystems that play important social, economic, and ecological functions. Despite these vital roles, it has been reported that more than 50% of mangrove ecosystems have been degraded in the last century, mainly due to human development. Hence, mangrove restoration is a critical priority of researchers, academicians, stakeholders, policymakers, government, and non-government agencies. Community participation is also vital since the locals are the direct beneficiaries of the goods and services provided by mangrove ecosystems. Yet, locals may also be the immediate contributor to the alteration of mangrove ecosystems. Although mangrove ecosystems provide various non-market and marketed goods and services, the whole value of mangrove products is not readily available. This is often neglected in conservation and development planning, resulting in the compromise of goods and services which may affect the community in the long term. Assessing the value of the goods and services from mangrove ecosystems can be acquired through economic valuations approaches. In this study, we determined the direct and indirect benefits provided by mangroves to the local community and converted them to monetary values. We also determined the extent of local knowledge and attitudes in mangroves and identified training needs of the community concerning its mangrove resources. We conducted this study in Nabago, a coastal barangay in mainland Surigao City with a population of 1,143 individuals. Nabago has a total land area of 3.75 square kilometers with an average elevation of 7 meters above sea level. Nabago is home to mangrove forests belonging to the mangrove belt along barangays Cagniog, Balibayon, Dayasan, Orok, San Isidro, and Kapalayan, which serves as nursery ground for various marine organisms. Barangay Nabago is also part of a 500-hectare mariculture park established in barangays Dayasan, Kapalayan, Kabongbongan, and San Isidro in 2008 to support the fishing community in the area. To gather the data we needed for this study, we adopted a purposive sampling method in the conduct of household interviews using a structured questionnaire in April 2021 to assess the direct use values of mangrove services. Respondents must have a dependence on the mangrove forests, for example, fishermen and firewood collectors, and only residents who were of legal age and have been residents for at least 1 year qualified for the interview. This was to ensure 95% confidence level with a 5% margin of error. To determine community perceptions on mangroves and to identify their training needs, our group conducted a household survey in the same community in August 2021. We collected direct use values from forestry and fishery products and indirect use values, or those ecological services of mangroves, such as coastal protection, provision of nursery grounds, carbon sequestration, and protection from saltwater intrusion. We used the market price method on products that were directly derived from the mangrove ecosystem and traded directly, for example, the value of fish, shrimp, crab, etc., and the replacement cost method for the indirect value of commodities where there was no assigned value to the commodities or services provided by the mangrove ecosystem. The respondents identified 7 goods under direct use values obtained from the mangrove aquatic biota and 2 from commercial aquaculture. The mangrove ecosystem of Nabago provided fish, shellfish such as crabs, shrimps, and clams, seaweeds, sea cucumber, and nipa palm for the locals. The total weekly harvest includes those consumed by the household respondents. Fish was shown to have the highest weekly catch, while seaweed was the least harvested, probably due to its low market value. It is reasonable for the fish to top among others in terms of harvest because most of the respondents fish for household consumption. Based on actual market price, sea cucumber was the most expensive, while seaweeds were the cheapest. From the market price, a discount rate of 5% was applied as adapted from Benny and Reynolds 1993. In commercial aquaculture, most of the operators were raising milkfish or chanos. Based on the data gathered, it is most likely the milkfish will provide more benefits to those engaged in aquaculture, considering that its operating cost and growing period is much lower than that for lobsters. Further, milkfish can easily be sold in the market, while the lobsters require regular customer or need a contract to be able to dispose of it. The mangrove ecosystem of Nabago provides direct use values worth 612,696 pesos and 89 centavos per hectare, or 4,149,303 pesos and 88 centavos per year, both from mangrove aquatic biota and aquaculture. These values are way higher than those in the study of Roselle, Sahidin, and Hirawati 2018 in Indonesia, although their study did not include commercial aquaculture. Similarly, the values in our study are also higher than those of Pardana et al. 2018, also in Indonesia. The difference may be due to the bigger area for commercial aquaculture in our study. For the indirect use values, our respondents identified 5 ecological services from the mangrove ecosystem. Coastal protection with a benefit value of 1,083,617 pesos and 75 centavos based on the cost of constructing a seawall. Wind barrier with a benefit value of 226,548 pesos based on the cost of a windbreak by the United Nations Environment Program, Climate Technology Center and Network. Protection from extreme sunlight with a benefit value of 588,400 pesos based on the market value of a Nipa hot shed. Protection from saltwater intrusion with a benefit value of 2,436,375 pesos based on the actual market value of the water supplied to the area for both potable and domestic use. And carbon sequestration with a benefit value of 5,982,057 pesos and 47 centavos based on actual assessment of the above ground and below ground dead carbon pool of 421.64 megagrams per hectare using benefit transfer methods adapted from EON 1993, which is $5.5 per ton of carbon dioxide. The total indirect use values provided by the mangrove ecosystem in Barangay Nabago is 68,568,598 pesos and 22 centavos, which is much higher than the 5,102,212 pesos and 95 centavo value in the study of Harini et al. 2019, where only 2 ecosystem services were considered in the calculation. Among the benefits of the indirect use values, carbon sequestration had the highest value, followed by protection from saltwater intrusion. Malik, Fensholt, and Mertz, 2015, and Harini et al. 2019 showed that coastline protection was the biggest contributor to the total value. Both studies did not consider carbon sequestration and protection from saltwater intrusion as part of the indirect use values. When these are excluded from our study, it will appear that coastal protection will have the highest indirect use values, which will conform to the aforementioned studies. Overall, the annual use values of the mangrove ecosystem in Barangay Nabago is around 72.72 million pesos. The indirect use values have the bigger contribution, which is about 94% of the total benefit value, similar to the findings of Malik, Fensholt, and Mertz 2015. The study of Harini et al. 2019 also had near value of 81.66% for the indirect use values. As to local perception of the mangrove ecosystem, most of the respondents belong to the 30 to 39 and 40 to 49-year-old age brackets. In terms of sex, Females at 56.5% accounted for the majority of the respondents. Since the survey was done during a weekday, most males were out for work while females were left at home. The respondents were also long-term residents of Nabago, mostly living in the area for 2 to 5 decades. As for education, more than half, at 55.5%, were elementary school graduates, while a third, at 34%, were junior high school graduates. Only a small percentage did not have formal schooling. Generally, despite their educational background, the residents of Nabago exhibited high levels of awareness on the ecological functions of the mangrove ecosystem. This is notable in contrast to Alimbon and Mansigyao 2021 in Panabo Mangrove Park, Davao del Norte, where the authors attributed the residents' knowledge on the benefits from mangroves to their educational attainment. In our study, long-term residency in the area may have contributed to the residents' high level of awareness on mangrove ecosystems, as most have lived in the area for 2 or more decades. Likewise, most respondents showed positive attitude toward mangrove protection. Generally, the respondents felt safe living in the mangrove forest. However, they also strongly agreed that living in the mangrove forest contributes to its destruction. They agreed to vacate the forest if asked to do so. Although the respondents agreed that it is necessary to deny people access to mangrove forests, they also agreed that they would feel bad if they were denied access to it. In terms of using the mangrove forest, the respondents strongly agreed that their rights will be violated if they will be asked to stop using the mangrove forest, and even agreed that mangrove forest conversion is good. To the extent that mangrove forests be used as waste sites, the respondents disagreed. The respondents' sense of responsibility for the protection of the mangrove forest and the organisms living therein imply that the locals see the intrinsic value of the mangroves, that is, valuing the forest for its existence. Based on their responses, it can be gleaned that the locals attach a bequest value on the mangroves to preserve these for future generations. Despite the high level of awareness of the benefits provided by mangrove forests, the locals are open to converting these areas for other uses. This may be due to the economic status of the respondents, wherein 79% of the respondents depended on fishing and 66% had a monthly income of 5,000 pesos or below. Economic empowerment may be necessary to improve the socio-economic condition of the residents of Nabago so that they may be better equipped to protect the mangrove resources that they heavily depend upon. In terms of training needs, the respondents ranked mangrove monitoring as their top priority for training, followed by mangrove conservation, management, restoration, and rehabilitation. Training related to aquaculture such as seaweed, sea cucumber, crab culture, from which they could gain direct monetary values, were the last among their ranking. This is remarkable as the respondents see the value of the mangrove ecosystem as the source of the benefits that they enjoy, with the 5 training topics related to mangroves being on top of their training priorities. The respondents, although not yet aware of the indirect use values as calculated in our study, may already have felt the many indirect benefits through the years. In conclusion, the mangrove ecosystem of Nabago, Surigao City has high economic value in terms of direct and indirect uses, valued at around 72.72 million pesos. High awareness on the ecological functions of the mangrove ecosystem and a positive attitude toward mangrove protection imply that the locals of Nabago attach an intrinsic value to their mangrove ecosystem and would like to preserve it for future generations or bequest value, as evidenced by the top training needs related to mangrove monitoring, conservation, management, restoration, and rehabilitation over those related to aquaculture. Our study may be used by the local government in formulating policies concerning the use of the mangrove ecosystem in Nabago to discourage the possible conversion of the forests in favor of development in the area. Our school, the Surigao State College of Technology, may consider the training needs in our extension activities for the community of Barangay Nabago. Lastly, we may also tap other agencies to technically capacitate the locals with regards mangrove conservation and management. That ends my presentation. Thank you for listening and have a good day.